Welcome. It's Eddie O. Thank you for tuning in. Eddie O knows I appreciate the support. Happy holidays to everybody here. It's Christmas Eve in Massachusetts. And a little bit of talk today about airships. Rigid airships, or the Zeppelin, like one of the greatest rock bands of all time, if not the greatest rock band of all time, Led Zeppelin. Another great band from that era was The Who. And in the early days of Led Zeppelin, the drummer from The Who was checking him out at one of the band rooms in England. Alton Leeds and Keith Moon the Loon from The Who. What a drummer, what a character. He was known for playing pranks on his fellow bandmates. Hotel Havoc, that Keith Moon. One time he drove his brand new Cadillac right into the swimming pool of the hotel that The Who was staying at. The Who was known as the loudest band in the world. And when Keith Moon was checking out Robert Plant, Jason Bonham, John Paul Jones, and a magic man known as Jimmy Page, Keith Moon said, "Man, this band's gonna go down like a Led Zeppelin." What comes to mind when most people think of the Zeppelin? Of course, is the example of the Hindenburg. What a tragedy that it burnt to the ground, because for some reason that day, that airship was filled with hydrogen. And I'm confident to believe that these airships were not full of a gas such as. And of course, Germany's airship, of all of the rigid airships, Germany was the benefactor of the creator of these rigid airships. In World War II, airships were used. 150 to 200 airships on record in World War I for transportation, deployment, supplies, and of course, what else did they do? They dropped things on the ground that went kaboom. The popular Elephant model from Germany, the creators of these airships, was really efficient. In fact, most of the airships, Axis and Allied, were bought from Germany. So it's pretty silly to think that they would be the example of one of these airships being dangerous. Yes, a common method of transportation. These airships were structured in a way where they weren't just the few people underneath like a hot air balloon and the whole thing lifted them up. No, on the contrary, these airships were open vessels. When you think airship, think more like Final Fantasy III, Final Fantasy VI in Japan. But floors, levels to these airships. People were known to spend time in comfort in these airships. But before we get there to transportation and luxury, what I would like to bring to mind is before the sudden stop of airships over all of the land due to the tragedy in the news of the Hindenburg disaster, where these were claimed to be unfit, unsafe, they were used quite a bit. And we think that some of our buildings from the past in Tartarian times, whatnot, they would charge the airships, so to say, I believe that these airships were a common method to travel and to do work, as in doing the leveling of the playing field. All of the great fires that I've been researching from the late 1700s all the way really up till today, but a predominant era, I believe that these fires weren't fires at all, but more along the lines of dropping high explosives, incendiary explosive devices from above. And how was this done systematically across the planet, especially in North America, where most of my research is, starting on the East Coast, working its way over, then to South America. As we know through these great fires, there was never any casualties. Tens upon tens of thousands of people evacuating these great fires that destroyed thousands of buildings each. So, I really don't believe that there was a population there at all. During this time of the reset, 1776, I think that these great fires were accomplished by these airships. These airships were used in a way, worldwide, to demolish old structures. They were used before World War I and before the War of 1911, where Italy had airships dropping bombs on Turkey, which was still the Ottoman Empire. And the War 1911, which is not a well talked about war, but that is the war preceding. Oh, there's me piloting airships. Thank you, AI. And if these things did run off a different power source, we've seen the Empire State Building, right, many times. We've seen ships through the Navy, commissioned through the U.S. Navy, to these spires. And what would they be charging? Would it be holding a charge? Here's a hangar of one of these airships, just to build this hangar. My goodness. Of course, built prior to the airship, right? If the airship was built inside it. Quite beautiful. The Graf Zeppelin is probably the most well-known Zeppelin besides the Hindenburg. In 1929, in between the World War I and the World War II, where after World War I, Germany was in a tough spot. Yeah, they're in big trouble. They couldn't do anything after World War I, they told them. But somehow in 1929, to build their reputation back up, the Graf Zeppelin was going to go around the world. So it took off from Fredericksburg, Germany in 1929. A full crew of people from different countries. And they traveled all over the world. They'll tell you the inside of the ships are built like this. The structure and the engineering going into this at a time of World War I and prior screams to me of a reacquaintance with some older technology that was refurbished or re-engineered. Most commonplace. There's pictures of these worldwide, of course, of what we can find. Most pictures that you find of this black and white early days of photography, the skies are completely whitewashed away. But I've come across some pictures and a couple screenshots if everybody likes. Some lesser known examples of how the United States commissioned many of these rigid airships from Germany itself in order to prepare to fight Germany. It is a curious case. But to understand that all the great fires across this land that we all share in every country. No country is exempt. No city has been untouched. The wars themselves, World War I, World War II, and various others, of course. Great example in Germany, Dresden, Germany. A city of beauty destroyed. Here's a picture of the inside of one of these Zeppelins. Now, is this what you would picture? Looks like smooth sailing. Looks like good quarters. So when you think of these airships, could you have families, lives, village, living in the sky, the cities of the sky? Again, something that's really not pushed by the history books, of course. I don't think that they spend any time, except for maybe one day, about the disaster, which was the Hindenburg. But do you believe all of these buildings were filled with, all of these balloons rather, these Zeppelins were filled with explosive gas? Is that how they managed to create the lift and how these airships worked? Very doubtful. I'm pretty sure it was a demonstrative, not a false flag, but a misconception to make them off the market. Why? They give us plane tickets? What's this airship, setting up Starlink back in the 1800s? That's a different story. World War I commissioned over every country involved, Axis and allies, 150 to 200 rigid airships for dropping bombs, incendiary devices, targeted areas. Prior to this, we talk about different wars, and the Civil War has records of the balloon Confederates where they would get a high view of the battlefield. But then again, you want to think, maybe to me I would think of maps. There's so many maps from different eras. Those bird's eye views, those first photographers. I'm sure there was a restructuring point when the technology was available, right? Is this just a balloon full of hot air? Is it full? Maybe the wrong demonstration? But the real big boys, the real bad boys, the rigid airships of the early 1900s are the technology that we generally associate with these smooth sailing cruising devices, known to go overseas no problem. Looks like there's a lot less to go wrong compared to modern flight. There's many photos out there of charging stations on ships themselves, where the tip of the airship would touch and charge. Now, what could be behind this? Is that a pipe with gas that makes it so this ship does not have to land? Is that more efficient than landing and charging it? Or is it something to do with the height in the atmosphere? Does it have to collect and be reactive to an etherical energy? The positive ion is in the sky and negative ions in the ground and water, I guess, right? Like Wardenclyffe Tower and Tesla. The Great Pyramids are known to have aquifers underneath and creating a circuit. And I imagine if the Earth is a great big battery, probably the Earth and the sky, the realm is a great big battery, all you have to do is connect those two little points. And then you got the motor turning, I suppose, or whatnot you would need. What I do not see on many of these ships Our propellers. The propulsion. What are we seeing for propulsion out of these airships? Of course, some of them we see in a bunch of like propeller. Maybe the Wright brothers got their hands on a couple of ships. But what was the propulsion method of these devices? When we see a lot of modern YouTube videos, and Resonate 369 is a great guy to follow, ionic thrust. Ionic thrusters working on the basis of coiled copper wire in a torus, and it pushes ions. It's the bladeless fan we used to see in the ionic breeze, right? The ionic breeze. Sky Mall, you'd see these really pricey fans with no blades, and it would make propulsion. Is the propulsion done completely enclosed inside this vessel itself? Evidence of the past, of course. Let's not talk about that. Was just a little fancy, a fad that didn't work out very well, of course, or it would still be around. But I believe that the airships were used in the systematic destruction and leveling of the Earth, city by city, to destroy ancient architecture, and they claim that these are the Great Fires, or the fires after the World's Fairs. There was no millions of people at these World's Fairs. There was no one at these World's Fires. That's why nobody, the tens of thousands in every single incident of evacuation, 0 people got injured in evacuations. In the burning of thousands of buildings per example of a Great Fire, go ahead, pick the capital of your hometown. Ask how many buildings got destroyed, how many people were left homeless, and then ask how many people didn't get out alive. The answer is always 0 out of millions. 0 every time. To me, that says that nobody was there. There was no population. That's why we are a repopulated civilization collectively, planetarily wide, from the last reset, which is approximately 1776 according to research. But history says, yes, I know, history says. It's well documented that. But is it? To put everything aside, to put logic aside for a moment, all the photos we do see just like television today, the images are conveying something to us. So this wonderful technology is, again, something else that we just cannot, take part in anyways, just on a recreational level. But I do believe that these airships had a significant role in the post-flood of mud or adding of earth requiring massive excavation. Once a certain point of excavation got through, they photographed it, right? They're like, okay, here's evidence of what was here. And then they took photos after the Great Fires, which were not fires. They weren't candlesticks and cows kicking over St. John's pipe in the wood mill down the hill that set 7,000 buildings on fire, and then they got higher fire codes. Oh my, no. These buildings were all stone. They had been there forever. There was no civilization there in these temporary homes that Abraham Lincoln was born in, and what they tell us history was like and the construction methods of all these wooden houses. No. And it was incendiary. This was not a fire burning ablaze. To destroy these buildings on this scale was because of dropping incendiary and explosive devices by the megaton over and over again by many, many airships. It's funny they make the bad guy out in World War I and World War II to be the same country, basically that one singularity of a country. And do they paint the bad guy and throw him in jail when he's the one behind the whole thing, putting himself there? Who is not in the movie? Which country's not in the movie of the League of Nations from Woodrow Wilson? That is, still in Geneva, which we now call World Economic Forum, which the small guard of the Vatican resides in, right? And who does the Vatican answer to? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. Well, maybe someday we'll be able to float around and relax. It's probably a comfy ride, I would imagine. Again, I believe also, of course, not too much. Just trying to put things together. But I'm pretty sure that the end of all this, of the Hindenburg, and how devastating it all was, So, a little more off topic or a little less popular would be the weapons of EMF, electrical weapons as well, to destroy these cities one at a time, what they call great fires. There was a conflagration, great conflagration. There was always an evacuation. The evacuation was always caused by a fire or a severe electrical storm. There was always an evacuation, every World's Fair fire and every great fire. Every last one of them has the nod. So, could these airships that were definitely dropping the bombs worldwide prior to the incident of World War II in Hindenburg, when these were taken away, could these ships have used what some say lighthouses really were? Were lighthouses beacons for ships, or were they defense for the lands to keep ships at bay, rather? Oh, lasers. I just started in the 80s. What are you talking about? Who knows? I graduated college in 2003. And my senior thesis and project and presentation was on the militarization, nuclearization, and the weaponization of outer space. And there was the space lasers out there at that year, and they had been going on for a while. Ronald Reagan and Star Wars. Yes, the program was called Star Wars under the administration of Ronald Reagan, the actor. Yes, Doc Brown. Ronald Reagan, the actor. So what does it say? Philadelphia, Wednesday. Always on a Wednesday. 1913, an airship raid. In 1913. Some imagination by somebody, right? Is that an account? Is that any different than any other historical account? The one that's typed up in a Merriam-Webster high school is different than that. What capability were these airships carrying? What is not in our vision right now, that is in our atmosphere, in our satelloons or whatnot? (1914), you see the Zeppelin up top? Working for the good old boys, right? Antwerpen, that is Germany, so this is dropping in Germany. Yes, and the American flag there, victorious. It's kind of giving you the impression this war was very important, like that looks like a good sized weapon to be used when, what other artillery were we using in World War I, correct? Germany's long arm, feared by all England. Wait a minute. Yes, it is historically accounted for and well documented of these airships and how the military, especially Germany, since it was predominantly their technology. 1913, South Bend, Indiana, Friday, this newspaper. We can get this paper for 2 cents. Sure, But down at the bottom, now it's just, what silliness. Silly, silly, silly. If you did want to terraform, if you did want to take out buildings like this, you often wonder about the leveling and the reduction of the acquired Earth over the last period that required excavation worldwide. And here we are, 1913, 1915. And of course, here we are in 2024 on the internet, and what pictures are out there are what pictures are out there. I'm sure there's archives and such, but I would imagine most of those, they're afraid to get rid of them. But now, are these real photos? What is this now? What are you thinking this is? Are these airships with weapons on them? Are these the same Zeppelins that we, is this the same animal? Is this the same society? Are these the same leaders? Well, it looks like they put some time into some of this. What will we call this? I don't even know. Propaganda? Maybe they were just flashing lights and just looking around. Maybe they're just flashlights so they could see where they were dropping their incendiaries. Or could it be that they were valid weapons? No, it was just something like this. They were just searching. That's what these images mean. This is really intense searching. They're really looking for that one guy. They're looking for Frodo and the balloon of Mordor. Might be a little different than what a lot of people think when they think, an airship. They think maybe something a little clunky, goofy. Pump it up with air. Go for a hot air balloon. How do we get down? Where's the sandbags? Well, no, these are a pretty intense infrastructure. Quite complicated designs. Thought patterns that just seem to pop up out of history, of course, like everything else. And all of a sudden, from 1911, when Italy had some ballooning in their P-2 balloons against Turkey, Constantinople, in the Ottoman War of 1911, prior to World War I, they were just kind of silly and sloppy. But all of a sudden, enter World War II, and things looked a lot different. But then, we look a little before World War II, perhaps, and we have evidence clearly of well-developed, well-finished, well-constructed, well-evolved, well-engineered airships from years and years prior to World War I, I guess, Was this just a misuse of a past technology when they realized that these airships could be used to reform the land and create the reset and destroy so many of the previous civilization's buildings? Floating in the sky so effortlessly. The lack of propellers, not like these devices we have today. But does that mean those are the devices we, as in you and me, have today? We're so like children at a birthday party, watching the clowns' magic tricks. We're so focused on the balloons, the shiny, the balloons, no pun intended for the clown, make some balloon animals, but we do have a perspective, no matter how much we believe we don't, and how open-minded we might be, to disallow all reality and never be convinced. Know that you're always wrong. helps you move forward. Clear documentation of the ideas of these Zeppelins was predominantly, though, of course, that you could ask people what they might hear besides the Hindenburg was the Graf Zeppelin. As the Graf Zeppelin took off 1929 again, traveled all over the world, people from every country, in between World War I, where Germany was in big, big trouble after World War I. So 1929, they said, hey, look what we want to show you. We just created the perfect traveling Zeppelin. And it was just ready to go. Come on, you catch somebody doing something, that's just the first time you caught them. But history will just tell us this was a fad. They just came up with this, short-lived, beginning of World War II, really, by 1915, and then by 1940-something, gone. So you're telling me the airships of the past, a whopping 30 years? 30 years on our time, in our timeline, in our calendars, 30 years. I'm 45. And I don't think I've got as many pictures of me or history of me as these airships do. I do have a Discord in my bio. If anyone's interested, I have a Mudflood bio, and you can always hit me up there for any information. I have endless amounts of pictures, way too many pictures. I do have a YouTube channel where all these videos are fully uploaded. What else is there when that part of history is gone? Very little remains. There isn't the airship dock we can go down to and still even use these. It's just completely not part of history anymore. Many airships. You wonder if the vanilla sky, the doctored photos of the skies of all the pictures in the late 1800s, early 1900s, if these were so abundant that they had to just keep doing it. And to think that these ships somehow charged from the top of these spires and our cathode drills, we've seen them on top of the Empire State Building, on top of the Capitol buildings and whatnot, all the domes, right? What if one of these ships, or some of these ships, or many of these ships never came down? They were just albatrossing up there, just cruising. Where's the propeller? That is definitely something I'm going to have to look into. The Graf Zeppelin that did travel worldwide and around the world in 80 days or whatnot is probably based on that. I'm sure not a hot air balloon, obviously. It's based on the Graf Zeppelin that was world famous. Was moving pretty fast. It's not like these things just kind of went up there and floated forever. They are all at consistent heights. Most of these pictures, what you see, have you seen a picture of one of these that's not level? No. They look pretty level. What I'm liking is I'm not seeing Goodyear written on the side of them. I'm not seeing much advertising. There was no Tartaria, McDonald's, and Burger King wars. But we do have the Graf Zeppelin with a luxurious inside. That cabin on the bottom was not the quarters. The quarters of the Graf Zeppelin was all throughout this balloon. Balloon's not the word for it. Rigid airship. This was not flexing. This was a steel internal structure. Very precise. And I'm sure made to a precision of a design higher than a scientist, if I would say, like a sacred geometry of the architecture of the buildings, whatnot. I'm sure there's a resonance and a reason for the shape to move through our atmosphere in a way that we don't quite have an awareness of. We see scarabs and bees, right? They shouldn't be able to fly. And they don't. Scarabs don't fly. Bees don't fly. They don't hover. They levitate. They change the frequency around them, so zip, zip. Zip, zip, zip. But one day they said, you know what? We've done all we can do with terraforming the land and using our lightning weapons and our bombings of all these cities, calling them Great Fires or World's Fairs. And there was no population at all anywhere. And we destroyed these, came up with a fake story. We're done with them. Let's get rid of them. Okay, Bob. Bob, what's your last name? Hindenburg? All right, Bob, Hindenburg. This is the story. This is what we're going to do. We're going to fill one of these with hydrogen, and we're going to tell them that all these balloons have always been filled with hydrogen. We're going to blow up. We're going to film it. Oh, the tragedy, the horror. And it's going down all slow, and oh my, oh, how could it be? Families across the world. Oh my. Don't you ever get in one of those, Billy. And that was the end of the airship. Just like that. One commercial. Done. So, that is my presentation on airships for Christmas Eve. I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas. Like, subscribe, hit that bell. If you like these kind of videos, please check out my YouTube channel, Eddie O Knows, for all the full long videos there. Would give a good shout out to all my followers, my fans. I recently made a video about Yankee Stadium. And I don't know if you guys have gone to my profile, but it did pretty well. It's like a home run of a video. It's got over 100,000 views. I think it's up to about 6,000 likes. It's a pretty viral video I have there. So if you guys want to support that video, please go to my page. Share that video to whoever does something with a video that has that much. But I'm proud of it. And it shows that the research is real. When you come with receipts and you're open-minded, I guess, or whatnot, or don't believe anything except for yourself, I can't be right. That'd be ridiculous. If I was right, that would be ridiculous. So I'll keep looking. But hey, please support the Eddie O Knows process. I have a good boss in service that we all do. Much love. Merry Christmas tomorrow. Let's not get into why Santa is not Santa. It's the other letters. It's the same letters rearranged, right? Elves. The L, the elves, the elven, the ones close to God, the one that's, oh wait, he's got elves working for him. Oh yeah? He judges you. And he doesn't give you gifts of the self and forever. No, temporary gifts, physical gifts. Hiding at the North Pole, the Axis Mundi. But that's a lie for another time. Hey, thank you very much. Hey, you guys have a great night. Merry Christmas. And again, thanks for all the support.